Hi, Asped. We're live.
Hey, Allison, how are you?
Good. Very good. I'm here with Hratch Jabrayan, who we've had before. And I'm really excited to have him back because we're going to get a solid update about the movement and especially about what transpired in recent days regarding the police brutality, what's going on in the judicial system. I think without any further ado, if you're ready, we can get right into it.
Allison, before we do that, let's. I know you are or were until a couple of moments right in France Square, correct?
Hi.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. I'm listening.
Can you give a little bit of an update of the day as it went?
So today I was working, so I was not in the mix. But I that's why I would like to go into straight into talking about an update what's been going on because Hratch is best placed.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then let's go for it.
Cool. Okay, so without any further ado, Mr. Hratch Jabrayan.
I like that Mr. part. I haven't been called in many years, but it works for me. Hello out there to everyone who's listening, who's participating in this.
Hi, Hratch.
Hello. First of all, thank you for having me again. For the second time in a few days. I guess we'll talk about a few things. I'll bring you guys up to date on what's going on. First of all, I was in court today for the criminal proceedings that are taking place against me. It's kind of been dragging on for a year and a half now. So these date back to the first movement we started right after the war, right after the capitulation was signed. So today was another court session. Next court date will be August 25th. Obviously, I can't go into too much detail as to what's going on, just because the case is still in front of the courts. But I have been criminally charged for under Criminal Act 226 of Armenia, for calling on, for posting something on Facebook against the Prime Minister, which is absurd, obviously.
And that was only enacted, I believe, a year ago?
Yeah, it was enacted about a year ago. My case is from December of 2020.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because...
So it's a kind of retroactively...
It is, yeah.
...tack this on because, if I remember correctly, this insult or criminalization of insulting the Prime Minister or public figures it's maximum a year old, I believe.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we know for a fact it's politically motivated. We know for a fact that there's no basis to it. We know for a fact that, listen, I was in Canada when I got notified by the police that they're looking for me. I actually flew into Armenia to face the charges just to prove to them that, I'm not running away from anything, and I'm okay with the fact that if they want to come after me, I have nothing to run away from. So we're okay with that. So anyway, this is dragging on. I have a wonderful lawyer who's taking care of it. And so we're in court today. We'll be in court again on August 25th. Let's see how it goes. I'll keep you guys posted. If I'm lucky again to be available here with Allison to say something after the 25th, then I'll share an update with you. So let's leave that at that, if you guys are okay with that.
I think that's a good, but this is a microcosm of what's going on here. As this government touts all of its judicial reforms, that's the word they use, reforms, and they're constantly meeting with various foreign dignitaries to talk and work on these reforms, but we are seeing the reality, which is that the judicial system is being weaponized against dissent. So I think that's a good segue into, what's going on with how is the judicial system dealing with the protest movement or being used to squash it?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting, to say the least, it's been an interesting several days in Armenia. Several arrests, several of our friends being jailed, a minor being kidnapped by plainclothes agents in front of his parents at 12:30. As it happened, I was
After midnight.
After midnight. As it happened, I was sitting with my lawyer. You know, we were having a beer late into the night, and my lawyer gets a call from one of the MPs saying that a 16-year-old has been kidnapped by plainclothes people in front of his parents from France Square. So it turns out, you know, the KGB, the former KGB, National Security Agency, took this child. They tried to brutalize him. They wouldn't tell the lawyers where they were. So my lawyer got the call. Him and a couple of members of parliament went to see this child. Initially, they wouldn't let the lawyer and the MP see the child. After a few hours, they were able to meet with the child. By the time my lawyer called me and said we were able to see him, he's fine, he's scared, they beat the crap out of him. It was 4:30 in the morning. They jailed him, the police, on charges of him uttering threats against government officials. 16 years old, okay? Luckily, yesterday...
Hratch, I have a quick question for you.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Yeah, go ahead.
Hratch, when you said the KGB, are you talking about the Russian FSB or are you talking about the Armenian NSS?
NSS, the Armenian NSS.
Okay, thank you.
So you were saying luckily.
Yeah, so luckily, yesterday morning, we got notification that the court has refused the Crown Attorney's request for the child to be jailed, and the court set him free. So yesterday morning around, I think it was 10 a.m., 11 a.m., whatever it was, he was set free. Unfortunately, though, a criminal case will be, going forward against him. Again, this is only for the child making some sort of a public comment, right? So it's to the point where it's getting ridiculous. This takes me back to the June 3rd events. Probably worst day in recent Armenian history, in Yerevan history at least anyway. From a police brutality perspective, the way they beat people, the way they literally kicked people in the head, the way they treated people.
Flipped people on the ground, on their head.
Yeah.
Grabbed women by the hair. It was incredible. And if before we go into the June 3rd events, I think just to add in regards to these plainclothes police, I mean, the police are supposed to have identification, obviously. Sorry, guys. So I just want to emphasize that, there's also many different types of police out there. And not only that, but there's talk that some of these police, especially the ones who had their faces covered on a couple of occasions, are not actually, government police, but are actually kind of the private guards of, oligarchs affiliated with this government, it's quite frightening to imagine that somebody could just be picked up by plainclothes when we don't, it's not acceptable, and especially, a minor
it's hard
night.
It's hard to tell who is who and what rules they operate under. There's the red berets, the black berets, the regular police. It's a little confusing for people.
Yeah.
A lot confusing.
Yeah, and you also have the US and the EU have been touting that, their police trainings here. It's really something. But anyway, that's just to put in context how many different layers of police we have in this police state ecosystem right now, and how and just how acceptable it is that there's plainclothes people walking around, and especially at a time when there's talk about, that some of them could be Gerzos guys. We don't know. If you're plainclothes and if you don't identify themselves, that's the whole point of police having identification, which we know many countries are dealing with issues of police brutality, and we know the importance of identification for when it comes to accountability. So it's very discouraging to see Armenia going into this authoritarianism. But perhaps now we could talk about, so June 3rd was, for whatever reason, it was this past Friday. It was just extraordinary how the police cracked down. And maybe Hratch can talk a little bit about what happened that day in the aftermath.
Yeah, so listen, it's very, very clear to us that we are dealing with a police force that was doubled, tripled in the last 2-3 years in numbers, who are not trained up to par. Within the ranks, as Allison just mentioned, we know for sure there are people who are not policed, but potentially private security oligarchs who are given police uniforms to be there, and or in civil clothes, plain clothes, who are integrated into the general population. Because the behavior we are seeing...
What's up, Oscar? Did you say something? Okay, you just repeated.
Okay, so the behavior we're seeing clearly indicates that there's a lack of training and or no training at all, where we are seeing protesters being beaten, kicked, brutalized, including, the fathers and families of war heroes of Artsakh. As you guys would have seen clearly, the father of one of the heroes, who was wearing actually a T-shirt with his son's picture on it, had the T-shirt ripped from his body. He was beaten to the floor, and then he was arrested and taken in. And when he said that, listen, my son died in the war, I'm a hero's father, the response he got was that, well, that's exactly why we are beating you. So obviously a professional police force wouldn't be saying that. And, this is not hearsay. I'm a personal witness to this. I saw it with my own eyes. I saw it with my own eyes how they brutalized two of our guys, Haigaz and Daron, who were beaten badly. Two of the guys who were from our battalion in the war, on the front lines, throughout the war, and then some. The issue is we are seeing some of the people, general population, being charged criminally because of the events of June 3rd, but we have seen zero action being taken against the police. Listen, I had a discussion, a roundtable with 12 police officers 3 days ago. It was just myself and 12 officers, including a colonel in the ranks. And, I clearly told them, I said, listen, I have zero issues with you arresting people within our ranks who are breaking the law. If they raise a hand on you, arrest them. If they are breaking the law, read them their rights and arrest them. However, the fact that there are people within your ranks who are going to the extreme, beating people before they're arrested, after they're arrested, our rights are not being read to us. We are not given any warnings, etc., etc. Those people should be punished also. And the response was hilariously funny. The guy said, look for the traitors within your ranks, and if you want, I'll give you the names. This is coming from a police colonel. This is coming from a police colonel. So I said, listen, if you have proof, then go and arrest those people. If you don't, then what you say doesn't hold any water.
What does he mean, traitors to what?
So what he's saying is that you guys are calling Nikol a traitor. He's not the traitor. The traitors are within your ranks. Of course, my response to that is that, so you admit that instead of serving the state, you're serving Nikol, because you have political views, which you shouldn't as police. So this is where we are at right now, and obviously we're struggling with it because they are bringing the full force of the police against the people. They see the numbers growing, they get concerned with it, and obviously they're trying to crack down. The funny thing is we see the trend. One day they use police brutality, crack down on people, beat people. The next day you see calm. There's no police involvement. They're just walking along. They're not, doing anything, and they pretend nothing's going on. The next day, you clearly see them become aggressive. So we can clearly see a trend, and obviously, this is not new to us. We are seeing the U.S. Embassy totally turning a blind eye, the European Union totally turning a blind eye to what's going on. And it's very obvious to us that our battle is not only against Nikol and the treasonous government that we have, but also to against the foreign powers that are funding this government. So this is what's going on the last few days.
May I ask, Hratch, how did that meeting come about? Did you guys propose to have a meeting with the police to talk about what transpired? How did that get organized?
This actually was interesting. So it was 3 days after I got beaten on the 30th.
Beaten so in such a way where he lost his wedding ring. I think we should remind everyone. Incredible. That's what a mess it was, and how little regard the police have for the people that are in the crowd.
And I haven't posted the pictures yet, and I won't, but I will eventually, and you guys will see the bruises and the marks on my backs, where my 11-year-old was crying uncontrollably when she saw how my back looked. Still looks somewhat, but the bruises and the marks on my back. So, but I'll post those pictures eventually. When the time is right, I'll post those pictures. What happened was, it was after the June 3rd event, late at night. I was walking down the street. I saw a group of police officers, standing around. And one of them recognized me, and he said, "Aren't you the guy who goes up on stage and talks bullshit?" And I said, "I actually am the guy who goes on stage, but, presents facts to the people." He said, "Well, it's because of people like you that Armenia is suffering right now." So I turned back and I walked towards them and I said, "Listen, guys, you guys want to have a detailed discussion? How about I invite all of you guys for a beer?" And I said, "Just me."
Summit.
Yeah, just me and a whole bunch of you guys. They refused the beer, but they agreed to have a discussion. So we ended up, there was 12 of them and myself, having a discussion about what happened that day. And I said, "You guys look tired." And they said, no, we're not tired, we're good. I said, "Well, after beating the protesters, you should be tired." So, that's how the discussion came about. Let's just say there was a heated exchange. And of course, all of them recognized me. They knew who I was. They knew how much investments I had made in Armenia. And one of them even said, "Listen, do you think you have more information than we do?" I said, "Well, probably not. I'm sure you guys have a lot of information, but that doesn't necessarily mean your information is correct. I could suspect that the information that I have, which could be 10% of what you have, is more accurate than what you guys have." And of course, they wouldn't buy that. So that's how we got into a deep discussion about what was happening. They started to accuse some of the members of the movement of being corrupt. I said, "Listen," one of them went as far as saying that they personally gave money to one of the leaders of our movement. I said, "Then he should be jailed," because I said giving bribes is illegal in Armenia. As much as it's illegal to take bribes, it's illegal to give bribes. So I said, "Why don't you give me your name?" And I said, "I'll go talk to the guy you gave a bribe to." And I said, "Both of you guys should go to jail." And of course, he wouldn't identify himself. He wouldn't give his name because obviously it was BS. But they went as far as giving names to me, saying, "We know people in your movement who are corrupt, and we've given them bribes," and so on and so forth. I said, "Then you're part of the problem. You're not part of the solution."
They claimed that they had given bribes to people in the movement,
and
knowing that that's illegal.
And the guy saying this to me is a colonel. He was a colonel within the police ranks, and the way I found that out is because the other cops who were in this discussion were referring to him as colonel. So that's how, I kind of figured he was, and obviously from his uniform and so on and so forth. So this is how the discussion went along. Listen, we have to take everything with a grain of salt. These guys, just a few hours before what was happening, were beating protesters, right? And here I am by myself challenging them. Not that I'm trying to be a hero, but I'm trying to say, listen, guys, I saw with my own eyes what happened. And I'm okay with you guys arresting people within our ranks who are raising hands on you, who are being stupid, and so on and so forth. But the bottom line is you guys also have to answer for your actions. You can't be kicking somebody who's on the ground in the head. You can't be arresting the father of heroes who just happen to be standing there, right? You can't be firing stun grenades at people when you haven't even warned the people to move away, right? By law, you have to give us a warning and say, we're giving you a minute or 2 minutes, whatever, to empty the street. All we were trying to do is say, okay, we're done here, we're moving, and you guys wouldn't open our way to move forward. So, anyway, long story short, this is what's happening in Armenia right now. Having said all this, so, ironically, as I'm talking right now, my lawyer is sitting to my right, but he's not sitting as my lawyer, he's sitting as my friend and having a beer with me. It's interesting for us to kind of see what happened the last few days and what we foresee happening over the next several days. We don't anticipate anything changing from the police behavior because 0 criminal charges have been brought against the police, even though we have presented the Crown Attorney's Office with a number of videos showing clear police brutality. I've even sent some of these videos to Canada, to my friends who are lawyers, who are within the police ranks, and they've all condemned the actions of the police in Armenia, but we haven't seen any action come out of it. So we think this trend will continue until we're able to make sure that we send Mr. Pashinyan where he belongs, to hell.
Thank you so much, Hratch. If you guys have any questions, you can ask them, and otherwise, I would like to talk about how this whole thing has been covered from a journalistic perspective. Asped, do you have any?
Yeah, if any listeners have any questions, please request the mic.
Yeah.
Let me remind everyone that we are live from France Square in Yerevan on Wednesday, June 8th, 2022. Alison Tamisian News is talking with Hratch Jabrayan, who is one of the opposition members and was beaten brutally in the last few days by police cracking down on peaceful protesters.
Indeed. So yeah, I guess if you guys have any questions, you can just put a hand up. But yeah, I would like to just interject here and say that part of it, so it's not just the government activating the full force of the police against the movement, not only US, EU, very significant diplomatic missions here, turning a blind eye, and they have indeed been helping with all of these reforms for this moment. But also, most of you guys probably know my background by now, but I worked as a journalist for 10 years. I guess I'm still doing it now. The way this movement has been covered and the way the police brutality has been non-existent, at least from the media that will filter out to you guys. A lot of, like, for example, the English language media here, which they have a lot of resources. Most of them, they don't have any advertising department to speak of. They are getting grants. They're getting grants from the National Endowment for Democracy, which is funded by the U.S. Congress fully, by different embassies, by the EU, et cetera, et cetera. They have no level of accountability locally, that is to say. And if you look at their coverage, I just want to tell you to look at it from a journalistic perspective. You will notice there are no interviews with protesters. There are no interviews with the injured. I'm talking about the police brutality stuff. I got into a back and forth about one of the articles, which, it was based off of a statement by the Human Rights Ombudsman. The current Human Rights Ombudsman of Armenia, who replaced Arman Tatoyan, who was very, very diligent, always, putting scrutiny on everything that has been going on all over the country, and especially in the border regions, and how much has been handed over to Azerbaijan post-war that have nothing to do with the November 9th agreement. He was pushed out. His term ended, and there was no way they wanted him back because he was exposing what was happening. So even the current Human Rights Ombudsman, who's, basically handpicked by Nikol Pashinyan's party, she put out a statement condemning the police brutality. And even that, some of the write-ups on it, there was no complimentary interviews with the injured activists, which you would do as a journalist. You would take a statement like that. That would be the peg for your story. But then you would have been on the ground that day if you're, worth your title as a journalist. You would have witnessed what happened. You would have interviewed the protesters, and of course you would have taken a statement, whether from the Ministry of Health or the police, blah, blah, blah. Nothing. Absolutely no field reporting, no interviews with the injured. And not only that, but the one piece, that I want to talk about, they counterbalance the Human Rights Ombudsman's condemnation of the police brutality with a quote from an NGO leader who, is Western funded, but more importantly, I don't care if that is vocally, publicly opposed to this protest movement. And he basically said that, the police may have been justified in their use of force. So it totally diluted any meaning to the story. And the fact that there was zero field reporting, zero interviews, it's atrocious what's happening here journalistically. No one is paying attention. The media is supposed to be what we call the fifth estate, another check on the powers that be. And unfortunately, there's very few people doing that job here, and it's a great disservice to the public. And unfortunately, it comes from seemingly an ideological perspective where people do not want. This government and those who support it do not want this movement to succeed. And they have a lot of different levers to use against us. So that is why we are doing these Groong spaces, because we know that your access to information on what is happening here is limited by virtue of the limited, media scene, especially if, you're looking for sources in English. So, yeah, that's why we're here. Do you guys have any questions? Asped, do you have any questions?
I do have a question, but I'm going to go after Arsine. Arsine?
Oh, thank you, Asped. My question, Hratch, you brought up an interesting point because, I hear a lot of people also talking about how they have information about people within the ranks of the opposition being traitors as well. And every single time I've heard that claim, I've never heard it followed up with any facts or any details or anything like that. And it's curious if anybody has ever actually spoken to any truth to any of that, because it always seems like these veiled attempts at creating doubt, but it's pretty atrocious to see people making such accusations without having shared any real facts. And the fact that they haven't done so since, they've been making those claims since the war, and the fact that they haven't actually done so to bring forward any of the guilty parties have people sort of started waking up to the fact that just might not be the case, or is anybody pursuing any of those claims of treason on behalf of the government or the people? Anyone?
No, go ahead. But I that's an interesting question as to whether there's people who have. I'm curious what you have to say. If you've noticed new people joining who have just finally woken up. That's interesting to know.
You know what, Arsina, that's a really, really interesting question. This is how Nikol Pashinyan came to power. False accusations against people of treason, of corruption, of so and so and so on and so forth. Having said that, it's been 4 years that he's been in power, and we have not seen one of those accusations turn into an actual fact-finding mission where the person is arrested, jailed, prosecuted, whatever it might be. So, they'll come to me and say, listen, so-and-so is a traitor. Okay, what is that based on? Well, I read it somewhere. Okay, well, you know what? I've read a lot of things which I don't believe because there is no factual follow-up to it. So this is what we are seeing. Now, are people waking up to it? I would say there could be some, but the percentage is extremely small. I've said it before, and some people get upset with me for saying this, but I'll say it again, and I don't care because it's the truth, and I will continue to say the truth. It is so easy to manipulate people in Armenia. All right, I've lived here for 12 years. I've worked here. I've worked with people, and it is extremely easy to manipulate people here for two reasons. One, lack of knowledge of general information that exists. Two, money. All right, I can go out on the street tomorrow and hand out 10,000 dirhams to 100 people and tell them exactly what I want them to say, and they'll say it the next day. That's manipulation. That's exactly what happens in Armenia. And the other part of it is people who are not privy to general information, so they lack the knowledge to do research, they lack the knowledge to, I don't know, they lack access to internet, they lack access to look up information, and they believe anything and everything you tell them. So this is a common problem in Armenia, and this is how Nikol Pashinyan came to power. Of course, listen, the former government made it very easy for them with some of the stupidity that they pulled off during the 10 years that they were in power. And this is no news because I've said it to Ser Sarkisyan to his face as to what some of their shortcomings were. So, everybody out there needs to know that I'm not on the side of the former government or the previous ones and so on and so forth. What I am looking for is a change in government where we have a patriotic government. I'm not calling a nationalist government, a patriotic government that is not willing to cede lands to the enemy and stand up for the rights of Armenians, which we do not have with the current government. And again, the current government came to power on manipulation and lying to people, and they're continuing to do so to people here because it is extremely easy to manipulate people in Armenia.
But I would just add one caveat that some of the people that have really drank the Kool-Aid are from the diaspora. Some of their biggest, the ones who are their foot soldiers in obfuscating, in excusing, in beautifying what they're doing are diasporans who, for whatever reason, have made this unholy alliance with them to, they just, I don't even know where to begin. Sorry.
Well, Alison, without defending anybody, the diasporans, you mean the diasporans that moved to Armenia, right?
Oh, yeah.
These people put a huge amount of faith in the country. And, I think in some ways they cannot face the reality that they were, they're disappointed. And so they continue in the same direction.
I would like to say something. They, anyone who has a financial stake, who is directly benefited under this government, why should they turn their back? And I think they know that when there's a change in power, probably, they're going to have to get by on their merit, not just be collecting easy money. So I think we should give. I would put even more blame perhaps on the the diasporans who come here but are living in their own bubble but have a very outsized influence on not only the conversation here, but I mean, especially what's being filtered out to the outside and what news everyone's getting. So I would say, I think people here are even more with it, you know. I just want to say that. And I would also like to say that, you know, just to give an example of like, you know, what's going on that people are not aware of and what we're fighting for. This government is remaining totally tight-lipped on the fact that Azerbaijan is building a new road, which they will tell us that we have to take now to go to Artsakh and will be under the control of Azeri forces. And people in Artsakh will have to have Azeri passports. I mean, this is in progress. They are offering people how much money, Hratch, leave Bertsor and all the villages in the Lachin corridor, Akhavno, 10 million dram. Yeah. 10 million dram, which is about $20,000 per family. I mean, not even really enough to buy a house, to be honest. I mean, it's.
Let me quickly ask. Alison, Arsene, did we address your concern?
Yes.
Yes, sorry, I sometimes forget to leave the speaker status.
No, that's okay. Because I was going to try and after Alison, I was going to move to Hovi.
Or anyone has, please jump in.
Hovi? Okay, maybe Hovi has moved away.
Hey guys,
go ahead.
Hovi, see.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not there with you guys live today, but this is a really interesting conversation. Thank you, Hratch, for coming on again. I want to just take the opportunity to also, just highlight how supplicant these various ministers today are behaving to the Nikol Pashinyan regime. I'm just like in shock because I was listening to the message from to the statement from the Ministry of Health yesterday, the Minister of Health, Ana Avanesyan, and she basically, this is completely not her, not her purview, right? So she said she praised the police for doing a good job, and basically insinuated that it was the protesters being provoked and the police violence was, justified. And I cannot find. I know that during the former regime, there were instances where of similar things, but in a case where you have this very transparent display of force against protesters, you have so much loss. It is not like a regular politics. I just can find it inexcusable. So I want to publicly give kudos to Arman Tatoyan, Christine Vartanyan, and Arman Tatoyan. Yeah, for demanding to see the Minister of Health today and putting her to shame. I think that was a necessary step. And people will spin this in different ways. They will spin the fact that apparently the Minister of Health has had a brother who who fell during the war. I'm not sure about whether it's
But I mean, here's the crazy thing that they are MPs. They should have access to ministers. I mean, it's just ridiculous that there has to be an act.
But I mean, this is the thing, like
obedience, and it shows how the government doesn't honor their responsibilities, not only to the people, but also even to elected officials.
Exactly. And the reason I thought about this is that you were saying that how media covers it. And I read a Facebook post from a CivilNet journalist. And he basically said, "How dare you do this? Anahit Avanesyan has, a brother, who fell during the war." But this is the same Minister of Health who, until I think the summer or even the spring of last year, there were bodies in bags rotting at the basements of different hospitals not identified. And I'm sorry, I don't care. This is a war that affected many families, but the spin on this. I just want to highlight how it's being spun right now, and how you will hear this spun on Twitter tomorrow. So just a heads up.
The thing is, you can do that if you're looking for things wrong. And there's a lot of people that are looking for things wrong, and they're looking for reasons to hate this movement, to not be part of it. These are not among the people that are about to come down into the crowd. And there's a lot of this. People looking to find something to make themselves feel better about not joining and not being on their own team.
I have a question for Hratch, if he's there.
Yep, I'm here.
Hratch, this is Asbed.
Hi.
Hi there. I'm not a terribly sentimental person, but I still haven't gotten over when you said that your 11-year-old girl started crying when you saw how badly injured you were, your back and everything. I just wanted to ask, it's like, how do you deal with that? What do you tell your daughter or your son about what's happened to you, and also not have them be terrified of the government, the police, the brutality, and lose trust in the country in which they're living. I mean, you moved to Armenia. How are they going to view their motherland under the conditions, and how they see their dad is treated?
Asbed, that's a wonderful question, actually, because all my kids were born in Canada, and obviously we moved here because our intention was to be part of the development of the homeland and participate in the development of the homeland. My daughters, who are kind of older than my son, and my wife have made it very, very clear to me that they don't want to live in Armenia anymore because of what's happening. They've made it very, very clear that their preference is Canada. They want to go back home, what they consider home, and so on and so forth. The challenge for me is to be able, obviously they're much younger, so the challenge for me is to convince them to the point where they understand that there is a reason why we are here, and that reason has two fronts. One is to be part of the group that brings the homeland to the next level, where we see a prosperous Armenia, where we have a patriotic government, where we have democracy, where we have people's rights, and so on and so forth. And the second part of it is where we protect the lands where our friends, our brothers died. So one thing, again, I don't want to become sentimental here, but there's a relation here. My children lost their uncle, as you all know. My, not blood brother, but brother, Chris, and 20 of my friends died in the war. We were part of the same group. There was a few of us who didn't die, and their families are here, so their wives, their children, who are friends with my children, and they need us more than we need Canada, more than we need that lifestyle. So this is the challenge where I try to balance in educating my children, my young children, that there is a purpose for us being here, and that purpose is much bigger than money, much bigger than a house, much bigger than a car, much bigger than a lifestyle. It has to do with the homeland and the people who died defending the homeland. And this is something that obviously I can't give up. So this is what I fight with every day within myself and in my family, and the challenge of trying to educate my children that the scars on my back, the blood from my kidneys, the beatings that I take from the police every third or fourth day are because their uncles died, protecting their father during the war a couple of years ago. And their father's friends are heroes that we need to talk about, and their families are actually families of heroes that we need to be by their side and not just walk away from. So it's a challenge. I'm okay with living with that challenge. My friends are okay with living that challenge, but it's a challenge, and we have to overcome it. And it will become much easier to overcome once we're able to get rid of this government and put in a government that is actually defending the rights of the Armenian people and the Armenian nation.
Those are inspiring words for the next generation.
It's inspiring words for all generations.
Everyone.
Yeah. Thank you, Hratch.
Go ahead. Yes, Anne?
Artsakh, you have the mic.
Go ahead. You have the mic.
Oh, go ahead.
Yes, I am.
Hey, I'm sorry. I thought it was Artsakh's turn. How are you guys doing?
So go ahead.
That's what you. Maybe they were just clapping. I'm like.
Yeah, I do not speak or ask questions a lot, so I didn't even know you have to allow Twitter to turn on the microphone and everything. So.
I see.
Without taking too long, I meant to ask you a question, your take on this issue. I noticed a little bit of a criticism of Arman Tatoyan lately in the last few days after he acknowledged people's trust rate and that the criticism was by the members of the current opposition, members of the media in support of the current opposition. My take is that they suspect that Tatoyan distances himself from the current opposition and that the powers that brought Pashinyan to power is actually behind Tatoyan as well. And I just wanted to, get your thoughts on that. Thank you.
Wait, you said I didn't see his statement. He was making note.
The question was that is it possible that Tatoyan is actually supported and promoted by the same forces that support and promote this government?
Is that your question?
Rather than the opposition.
Yes, that's the last part of what I said, but the gist of it is that basically, because it seemed like the members of the media that support the current opposition also seem to be criticizing Tatoyan after he acknowledged the people's trust in the Ombudsman office and him, specifically after the recent, I think it was, I'm not sure if it was the Gallup polls, but some polls that after some polls were published. So, a lot of people showed trust in the Ombudsman office, especially him. I think it was during his, the poll was about his tenure last year. So, since it,
I see.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lag on time. I mean, there was a previous poll also where it was clear that, he was the one that people did among all of the government institutions. Now he's gone, obviously. But I think that's a reflection because he was putting scrutiny on all of these things going on. And through a public office where he has some, he had access that even journalists don't get to be able to visit certain, border villages, et cetera, and which that's gone now. And, he's still, speaking in his way. He's been, I'm part-time at American University. He is now going to be on full-time staff, which is excellent. I don't know. I mean, I don't think we need to get into this. It's, everyone has their part to play.
Although, Alison,
he's obviously not gotten up on the stage, but the stage is open.
Alison?
Yeah.
I think though the question is legitimate because a lot of people have been wondering whether Tatoyan is going to enter politics or not.
I can restate the question, the main issue, if you wish.
Invite him on Groong aspect. I think we need to ask him. I think he's quite careful because do you know that even you wouldn't believe depending on where you're coming from, you don't see it, but you wouldn't believe how much, even if he, one word and people will, make you radioactive. It's crazy. So I think Tatoyan is being quite careful. He's a lawyer by training. He's, and people know him for putting scrutiny on what is going on the border regions and this and that. So I don't know. We should have him on the show. That's my take.
Yeah, I think we should try to find him and bring him on the show.
I don't want to put words in one's mouth, and I think it would be fantastic to get him on the record. But I think the thing is, the people also give legitimacy. The people give legitimacy to, because it's the people that said that, yeah, we want more of this. We want more scrutiny on this government, not less. That's why he had trust, because people want that scrutiny. They want to know what's going on. They don't want to be kept in the dark, and they know they're being kept in the dark by this government. And that's, whether it was Tatoyan or whether it's somebody else, that's what people are looking for. They want somebody who's sincere, who's trustworthy. And I think, it's like a very small group of people that are defending this government and still excusing them.
I just want to add that the poll in question is the CRRC, also I guess referred to as the Caucus's barometer. So they had the 2021, and if you don't mind, I want to have my own personal sort of opinion about this. We saw, I personally would love to talk to Tatoyan. I would like to ask him why he is not out in the street with the other opposition. But also, I've seen some of the most, virulent supporters of Pashinyan on Twitter, criticize him regularly, just like the opposition did. And to me, I think the opposition also needs to explain why they're criticizing him. It seemed to be not random. The opposition yesterday, it was like multiple different people started targeting Tatoyan. But my question to Tatoyan would be, why isn't he on the streets with the rest of the opposition, like Avetik Chalabian, like Nairi Hokhikyan, the people from the 5165, and
Hratch Jabrayan.
Also as a thought experiment, let's say that Tatoyan was out there, or I really want to understand if those people who are like supporting Nikol Pashinyan every day would actually put their trust in would they support Tatoyan, or would they criticize him like I've seen them do in the past? So they started attacking him because apparently so some LGBT things, so they can and it was shocking because as a human rights defender, I know that Tatoyan had a very good record, but it's just he's being attacked from, unfortunately, both sides, and basically all sides. I don't want to do both sides here, but all sides, the opposition, the Nikol lackeys, if I may say so, and Tatoyan himself have questions to answer why this is happening.
May I add?
To make a small point, it wasn't the official opposition. There's not been any official criticism of Tatoyan. I think we need to emphasize this. It's just some random people speaking in their own.
It's not official, but but it was people normally supporting the opposition, but it was not official.
Right, exactly. I don't think it's right to make it sound like it's a party or it's the movement. These are people speaking of their own volition, and everyone has their opinion.
So if I may jump in, guys, here quickly, I agree with Alison. First of all, let's emphasize the fact that nobody from the opposition leadership group has criticized Tatoyan in any way, shape, or form. That's one. Two, I want to make sure that everybody understands that the fact that his name has put into circulation, positively or negatively, is a game that is being played by powers who want to smear his name one way or another. So let's get that out. You know, just an hour ago, I was with the leadership group, and let me make it clear, all right? Mr. Tatoyan is not being discussed in any way, shape, or form in one way or another. I'll take that into a personal note right now, and I'll bring it on to myself as part of this group to make it clear that I personally have a lot of respect for Arman. I know him. I just saw him actually a few days ago. I had a good chat with him. I have nothing but positive things to say about him. He's made it clear that at this point in time, he's not interested in going into politics. That does not mean he will not go into politics on moment's notice. But let's make it clear. His name was put into circulation by people who want this to become a topic of discussion. And there has been zero comments about him from the leadership group of the opposition and or really the government at this point in time. So let's leave him alone. Let's leave him to focus on what he is doing until the time comes that he announces that he's going into politics, and then we can have a discussion about him. Arman's a good guy. He did a great job when he was the human rights defender for Armenia, and let's leave it at that for now.
Yeah, we have respect for everyone's choices, and I mean, he's one of the people that really puts scrutiny on everything that's going on, and you know, that's what we're fighting. We're fighting apathy. We're fighting lack of transparency, and he's on our side in that fight, obviously. Any other questions? Oh, we have a requested. Let's see who it is. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, yes, go ahead.
You're muted.
May I?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't mean to start the whole thing, obviously. For 2 years, in fact, I was, he was someone that I had a lot of respect for. In fact, I wanted him to get into politics and possibly run for PM. But the reason I brought this up is that I follow Boris Murazi. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with him. And he's generally well-balanced, and I was a little bit surprised that he brought him up. And
Don't know.
Boris Murazi is a journalist. His channel is Politik AM on YouTube, and like I said, he's an Armenian of Yazidi descent. And he's generally very balanced in his views and overall. But the main criticism was coming because Tatoyan did not say anything about the police brutality on June 3rd, I think. That was my take on it. I just want to leave it at that. Like I said, I myself have a lot of respect for him, and I only wish him well, really. So.
Yeah, I'm glad we cleared that up. Anybody else? Shall we wrap up? Is there anything we missed?
We've been here for an hour, and I think that the rallies tomorrow on Thursday evening are going to start at 7:30. So we can
before that 9 a.m. Yes.
Yeah, so we have a 9 a.m. Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister of Russia, is here. So we obviously want him to know what's going on, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're going to get together at France Square at 9 a.m. Well, I'll be there at like 8:50 if you guys want to meet me there. Coffee's on me. We have some stuff planned because the foreign minister of Russia is here, Mr. Lavrov. We want to make sure that he's up to speed as to what's going on from our end. And trust me, it's not like he doesn't know or he hasn't talked to us. So I'll just leave it at that. So we've got some stuff planned. I think that will take about 3 hours or so. And then we'll break. And then we're going to gather again about 7:30 p.m. tomorrow night for a massive protest. I encourage everybody who is in town to join us. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be kind of next level type of thing. And we're on our way to sending the traitor in charge to hell.
Fantastic.
Okay,
on that
so
note,
Alison, we will definitely get together for our live show after the evening rally. and we'll discuss whether we want to do a midday as well.
Fantastic. Thank you guys all for
everyone.
listening, and stay tuned.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, thank you,
Much,
thank you.
much
Talk to you
love
guys
from
soon.
France.
Thanks, Hratch.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.